Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll get started with our regular council meeting on August the 25th. Boy, where did August go? Call the meeting to order, and first, of course, we adopt the agenda. We have a recommendation here, the agenda for August 25th, 2025, regular meeting of council be accepted and passed. I get a mover and a seconder, Councillor Burke and Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. We'll go to disclosure of pecuniary interest on anything on today's agenda. Councillor Burke?
Yes, I have an indirect pecuniary interest for item 7A.
Okay.
My employer has worked on some of the appendices within the report.
All right, thank you. I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
Yes, 4A, the check register. My spouse is employed by one of the payees.
Okay. Councillor Rankin?
I have nothing.
Thank you. So we'll move to O Canada then. So you got it queued up, Karen.
I do.
Ask everybody who's able to rise and join us with O Canada. Thank you. We've got a couple of meetings under the Planning Act, so we need to recess our council meeting to do those. So I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North recess the August 25th, 2025 regular meeting of council at 7:03 p.m. for the purpose of holding meetings under the Planning Act. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Rankin and Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. So we'll start with the Committee of Adjustment. Of an application deal with there. So I'll call the Committee of Adjustment meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest with regard to anything on this Committee of Adjustment agenda. This is for application A13/25. Councillor Burke?
I have none.
I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Rankin?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with the minutes of the previous Committee of Adjustment meeting, and the recommendation would be that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of June 2nd, 2025, applications A10/25, A11/25, and A12/25 be adopted as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to today's application. This is A13/25 for Marcia Anderson. The location of the subject property is described as Lot 9, Plan 61M238, and is municipally known as 129 Parker Drive. The property is approximately 0.66 acres in size, and the location is shown on the map in your package. Purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from the minimum required rear yard setback of 9 meters for an existing primary dwelling and detached garage. Proposed variance will permit a reduced rear yard setback of 5.75 meters for the primary dwelling and 6.32 meters for the detached garage. Other variances may be considered where deemed appropriate. How was notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on August 8th, 2025.
If we get the planning rundown, Jamie, if you could. So microphone working there?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Chair and members of committee. I'm presenting the report for minor variance application A1325 for your consideration. The property subject to the application is municipally known as 129 Parker Drive. The purpose of the application is to provide relief from the minimum rear yard setback of 9 meters, which is 29.5 feet for an existing primary dwelling and detached garage. The subject property is within the hamlet area of Kenilworth and in the county official plan and is zoned unserviced residential site specific, which is R1A 93 in the township zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting relief from the minimum required rear yard setback of 9 meters from an existing primary dwelling and detached garage. The request will allow for an existing rear yard setback of 5.7 meters from the primary dwelling and 6.32 meters from the detached garage, opposed to the required rear yard minimum setback of 9 meters. We note that the buildings are existing and the lot is not deep, it's quite shallow, and that the lot is also irregular in size. Overall, planning staff are of the opinion that the variance requested is minor and is an appropriate use of the lot. Thank you.
In our package, we have correspondence from the Grand River Conservation Authority. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
No, not in respect to this application.
Okay, thank you. Any persons wishing to be notified of the decision must submit a written request to the Secretary Treasurer. And with that, I'll open the floor for questions or comments from the applicant and or the public. Does anyone wish to speak to this application?
We have Mr. Small, who's on camera there, who is wanting to speak to this.
Okay. Mr.
Thank you.
Small?
Thank you, Derek Small, owner of 9168 Highway 6, the farm with which this property backs onto. Thank you for taking my questions. Question number one is, this property has been built and lived in for many, many years. I don't profess to understand why there's a request for a variance long after the building has been completed. Can someone help me understand the process?
Okay. I don't know the answer to that one myself, so I'm looking to our planning folks to help me here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through the plan of subdivision, requirements for building location survey, lot conformance to lot grading, and there's some other conditions like tree planting, paved driveway, need to be provided to the township once the home is built. And in this case, the as-built building location survey, when submitted, showed the deficiency. So this is a requirement to make that correction.
Is the homeowner facing fines or penalties as a result of the infraction?
You help with that one, Darren?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, the penalty would, there's no penalty other than having to file the application and pay the fee, and the applicant runs the risk of this variance not being approved.
Thank you. Follow-on question. There are additional build-outs from the property in terms of decks and other things. Do those types of build-outs require additional permitting?
Darren.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The decks that we're aware of were built with the home, and such things as decks are allowed to project into required yards. I'm hoping that the porches are shown on the plan. I'm not aware of other structures
Porches being on the front of the property or the back of the property, just to be clear?
back.
Okay. So it is also my understanding that there is a drainage system that is between my property and this particular lot. Is anyone in the planning committee aware of that infrastructure?
So I think what you're referring to is the ability to keep the drainage from that property on that property as opposed to encroaching on your property. Is that what you're getting at?
I think so. Like there's some kind of a drainage system there. I was just on the property yesterday. There is some kind of a drainage well slash hole that's right on the back corner. So there's some kind of in-ground drainage system there. Forgive my ignorance on it. I don't know how all these things work, but I do know there is some infrastructure in the ground.
But I think Darren can answer that question, and I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Between the farm property to the north and the subject property, there's a 6-meter strip of property owned by the municipality that carries stormwater infrastructure.
And that, based on the guidance of the experts of the township, is not impeded in any way or restricted due to the proximity of the new home?
Through you, Mayor Lennox, we don't believe that this application would have any effect on the stormwater management for the property.
Do we know roughly how often that stormwater management infrastructure needs to be serviced?
I'm going to have to defer to our Public Works Department on that.
Okay. Can we note for the record that if there is any issues with water management as a result of this property's proximity to the adjoining property, that any and all excavation and repair work be done on that side of the property as opposed to my property? Can that be noted in the file, please, and approved as a part of the approval of the variance?
I can speak to that last half. No, the Committee of Adjustment doesn't have that power. However, that's the reason for the 6-meter strip of property. That's what Township feels is appropriate to be able to get in and maintain the infrastructure that's there.
Great. Okay, thank you for all that.
Okay, and Tammy, I see you popped up. Do you have any comments with regard to the maintenance of that system?
Yes, through you, Chair. So currently the subdivision's still maintained by the developer. Once the township receives assumption of it, we would be required to do the maintenance on it. So there is a swim pond that 6-meter swale drains to, and we would do an annual check on the swim pond as well as the swale. And then as needed, we would do the required cleanouts.
Okay. Did you have anything further, Mr. Small?
No, you've answered all my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this application?
So I had understood that Marcia Anderson, the owner of the property, would be wanting to take part, but she's not named on any of those attendees. So I'm going to have to say she's not here.
Okay. We'll turn it over to committee members. Questions or comments from committee members?
Sorry, sir, are you here? Oh, you're not asking the public yet. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Are you here to speak to this matter? Okay.
Okay. You folks are not in the back, you're not on this one either. Okay, just want to make sure we're not overlooking anybody. We'll go to committee members and any questions or comments from committee members? Councillor Hearn?
Yes, a lot of my questions relate or are very similar to Mr. Small's questions. And thank you for asking some of those because they were the same questions. What I'd like to know is if this is approved, what protections are in place for the small property? It doesn't seem minor to me to be 20 feet away from what I can clearly see in the map are cows. This is prime agricultural land. I pulled it up on ag maps, list will silt loam, good drainage. What if Mr. Small wanted to put drainage in that property? And I guess maybe the drainage you're talking about was the James Elliott drain, because I did pull that up. But what kind of protections can we put in place when conflicts arise? Because I could see conflict arising being 20 feet away from cows, or any other potential activities that he could have there, spreading manure, flies, all sorts of things.
Anybody want to tackle that one? Curtis?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Chair Lennox, and to answer Committee Member Hearn's question. So if you do look on the map, so there is the property in question, and then there's the 6-meter block that the township does own. So if you added those distances, the 6 meters plus the existing setback, that would meet the required setback in the bylaw. So I'm not sure exactly how the house got placed, but it would appear that if you added those numbers up, that gets you to the minimum setback. So the home is still 9 meters from the lot line, if you include the township's property. So in terms of yeah, I don't know if there's more I can add, but
So there's, just to make sure I understand, there's the 6 meters that the township will have ownership of once this is all completed. And then the setback will be 5.75 meters to the dwelling in addition to that. Okay. Other questions, Councilor Hearn?
What would happen if this variance were not approved?
If this variance was not approved, the applicant would have the opportunity to appeal that decision, and that would be heard by the OLT. Or the township would need to take legal action against the property owner to have the home and the detached garage removed.
Anything further? Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments? So we're looking for a variance on the rear yard setback. Just trying to, I mean, that's very irregularly shaped lot, difficult to place a house on it appropriately. Was there ever room enough to put a house on there and meet the requirements?
Absolutely. The building was shown with their application on a lot grading plan prepared by a surveyor, and it met all the setbacks. It just wasn't constructed in accordance with the plans.
Okay, so is the grading going to be appropriate to manage the stormwater from this in the new location?
The surveyor has signed off on the grading plan, saying it's in general conformance with the overall plan.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay, so I guess that brings us to a decision here. Unless you had another one, Councillor Hearn?
Not really another question. My only big concern is protection against conflict, and I don't want to see people fighting down the road. I don't know whether there's anything that can be written into anything to prevent conflict or acknowledge it.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
But everybody, these microphones were made for that, not this room, so.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair, we do put provisions in our subdivision agreements that require acknowledgement by purchasers that their purchasing a lot within a rural area, and that those come with odors and noises. So we do put that in the subdivision agreement and require that to be in purchase and sale agreements. And then for conflict the other way, the MDS 2 setback, it would be not affected by this because it's measured from the urban boundary, which is the type B land use versus a residential use. So that MDS 2 setback for the type B land use is double what the type A is. So not affected by this building at all.
Anything further? All right, so the decision in this case would be that the minor variance applied for in application A13/25 for the property described as Lot 9, Plan 61M238, Geographic Township of Arthur, with a civic address of 129 Parker Drive, provide the following relief. Number one, that a reduced rear yard setback of 5.75 meters be permitted for the existing primary dwelling, whereas the bylaw requires 9 meters. And number two, that a reduced rear yard setback of 6.32 meters be permitted for an existing detached garage, whereas the bylaw requires 9 meters. All those in favor? That's approved. Thank you. We'll adjourn our Committee of Adjustment meeting then, and I have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment meeting of August 25th, 2025 be adjourned at 7:22 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Burke and Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. That concludes our Committee of Adjustment meeting. We'll now switch to our public meeting for rezoning. And I'll call that public meeting to order and ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest with regard to this application, zoning bylaw amendment 09/25 for Wilson Developments at 345 Durham Street East. Councillor Burke?
I have none.
I have none to declare. Councillor Hearn?
No.
Councillor Rankin?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. The owner applicant in this case is Wilson Developments. And the location of the land subject to the proposed amendment is described as part of Park Lot 1, north side Durham Street and east side Main Street in town of Mount Forest, municipally known as 345 Durham Street East, Mount Forest. The subject property is approximately 0.31 hectares in size, and the location is shown on the map attached to your package. Purpose and effect of the proposed amendment is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from low-density residential R1C zone to medium-density residential R2 zone to facilitate the construction of 4-street townhouse units. The existing dwelling is proposed to be demolished. A future severance lot line adjustment is proposed, which would sever off the rear portion of the lot and merge it with an adjacent property. How is notice given for this public meeting?
Notices were mailed to property owners within 120 meters of the property and as well mailed to the applicable agencies. Signage was posted on the property on July 31st, 2025.
Amy, can you give us a rundown on this application, please?
Good evening again, Mayor Lennox, members of council. I am happy to provide you with a brief presentation of ZBA 0925 application for tonight's public meeting. The subject property is designated as residential in the county official plan and is zoned low density residential R1C in the township zoning bylaw. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to rezone a portion of the property from low-density residential R1C to medium-density residential R2 zone to facilitate the construction of 4-street townhouse units. The existing dwelling on the property is proposed to be demolished and a future lot line adjustment application is proposed, which would sever off the rear portion of the lot and merge it to the adjacent property located at 119 Byland Drive and will remain R1C zone. The applicant has identified that the proposed townhouses will comply with all the R2 zone standards and requirements. Planning staff would like to see a building footprint sketch submitted showing the proposed setbacks to ensure that the proposed dwellings align with the existing dwellings on either side of the property as well as the streets to provide a consistent streetscape. I note that the applicant is here and may wish to provide some additional information and answer any questions about their proposal. Following this public meeting, planning staff will consider any concerns that we receive and will prepare a final report and a bylaw for council's consideration.
You. So we have correspondence that has come from Grey County and also from the Wellington Source Water Protection. Has any further correspondence been received in respect to this application?
Yes, we received comments from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority who have no concerns or objections. We received correspondence from Annette and Bob Fox. Did you want to speak to your concerns or? Okay, all right. So this was emailed and it's on your desk. Their concerns are making sure the grading of the land doesn't affect their property and that it does not become a flood zone, that the line of 25 to 30-foot cedar trees that run behind their home are not removed. And if that's what they use for privacy, if they are removed, they would like assurances that a 10 to 12-foot privacy fence of their liking is constructed. Parking, will homes have enough off-street parking for their vehicles and guests, especially in winter? And will they have enough room for all their snow? They have a huge driveway and they're running out of room for that snow this winter.
Okay. That's the end of the correspondence. Okay, thank you. So the bylaw will be considered at a future regular council meeting. Persons wishing notice of the passing of the bylaw must submit a written request. With that, I'll open the floor for any questions or comments from the applicant and or the public.
Did you want to speak, sir? You have to come to the mic and let us know who you are.
Thanks. My name is Mark Dorigo. I live across the road and concerned that the development will affect the character of the neighborhood. Wilson's built beside me and that certainly affected the character of the neighborhood. They're all rentals and they're all occupied by partiers. So I'm sure I don't have a lot of influence anyway. I was wondering again if the cedars were going to remain beside the house to create a buffer of privacy, and there are 4 or 5 mature trees at the front of the house on Durham Street, and they too would provide a buffer. So I'm just curious what this whole development entails and whether or not these trees are remaining, and giving my 2 cents worth.
I think we have a representative of the applicant joining us online. You, Matt?
Good evening.
Good evening. So you've heard some of the concerns that the Foxes have talked about, and you heard the gentleman who just was speaking about particularly changing nature of the neighborhood and privacy issues with regard to trees, etc. Do you have any comments on any of that stuff?
On the trees front, we're still waiting for the final survey from our surveyor to know where everything is. They sent me the CAD data of the boundaries so that I could confirm how wide the lot was to make sure that we can fit 4 units. But beyond that, I don't have the precise location of the trees at this point. I suspect that the cedar tree line is quite a ways into our property and won't be able to be maintained, at least up the portion beside the easternmost dwelling that we will be constructing. The portion that gets conveyed to the property to the north, there's no plan to remove anything there. They're going to want to keep those trees there. And then the bigger trees in the backyard will be staying too. The front trees will likely go. That will depend on where driveways end up and where the building footprint needs to be in order to line up with the other dwellings on the street. I think it's a 6 meter setback is standard. So I again suspect that the base of the trunks will either be within where the driveways are going to be or where the footprint of the building is going to be, and those ones at the front will go. I don't recall offhand what the zoning bylaw says about this density in relation to a fence. I know in the next density, the R3 zone, it definitely requires a fence. Darren might know that offhand. So if the zoning bylaw requires a fence, we will build one. If it doesn't, we will see. And that's not a thing that we do as a standard unless it's required. In terms of the changing character, I mean, I get those concerns. They come up a lot every time someone goes to change something. My answer to that is this is what the policy says to do. The PPS and the official plan in general encourage intensification within built up areas in order to better utilize existing linear infrastructure, to better the financial position of the municipality in the long run. And you have more walkable communities and all those good planning outcomes there. So these are going to be townhouses. They're going to be pretty consistent with what was developed on Wellington Street East on the east side of Newfoundland. Those kinds of townhouses there, there'll be a similar vibe. So I don't think they're that out of character for this general neighborhood of Mount Forest. I mean, hopefully that answers most of the concerns. It might not satisfy all of them, but that's kind of my responses to what I remember being mentioned just now.
Okay, did you have any, thanks for trying to address those. Did you have any formal presentation you wish to make or other comments?
Not really. Yeah, we're doing 4 townhouses is the plan. That back piece is going to the north. We kept it to the R2 zoning because we didn't need anything more intense. So there's really not much more beyond a townhouse. The 4 townhouses that would be permitted, I believe the R2 zone doesn't allow more than 4 in a row. And all the units that we build will comply with all the setbacks, height, and frontage requirements, and that our plan should be done shortly. And once it is complete, we will be coming forward with the land division portion of this application.
Anyone else wish to speak to this application? Yep.
I'm Annette Fox, and my backyard backs onto this property in question. My concern as well is the property, the back half of the property that's going to be sold to 119 Byland. Is that also owned, or have you already made an offer to the people at 119 Byland, and that house will that property will make an entrance to a mirror subdivision of these townhouses? That's what it looks like.
Go ahead if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, so the reason we're doing that is because our desire is to do townhouses. And when you do that, you make rectangular lots, and this lot is about twice as deep as it needs to be for a townhouse. If we just divided it into 4 pieces, they'd be kind of this big wasted, like they'd be these bowling alley lots with this super deep backyard that would long term not really be a good use of land. So by keeping that in one chunk and conveying it to that property to the north, there could be some long-term future densification process there. They have no intent to do that. They're going to just purchase this portion and attach it to their backyard. You couldn't actually do a similar thing off that end because it's violent curves there, and their frontage is much more narrow, like it ties in like this. So any long-term development there would involve a complete demolition of that house and amendments and all sorts of that stuff. But they have no intent of doing that. We just approached them because there was this extra piece that wasn't needed for this, and long-term it provides some latitude for different options.
I find that hard to understand why these people want to make their property so huge They're an older couple or older lady anyway that I know. And just doesn't sound, something sounds fishy. Like, why are you cutting off half that property? You could run the townhouses lengthwise, which we don't want either, but you're coming into an area that has huge, beautiful properties, and you're building 4 townhouses that probably won't have enough parking, probably have nowhere to put their snow. It's just not right. And we were on, if you read my letter, the comments that you made in the Wellington Advertiser last week all points to trying to keep the small town flavor. And this isn't. We've already got how many townhouses went into the little forest that used to be where all those townhouses are now. There's 30 townhouses there? Is that not enough for that area? Please reconsider. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, comments from council? Councilor Ray.
So, I just want to echo Mrs. Fox's comment, because that was my number one comment based on this application. The land that's being conveyed to 119, I find interesting at best. I don't see why, you couldn't have these long, skinny lots all the way back to the property line at 119 Byland Drive. That would give the families that are going to move into these townhomes a lot of green space, which I am happy to see that it says that these townhomes are going to comply with all of the R2 zoning, which then makes me question, when the developer decides to do something with this back portion, are they going to come back looking for variance? My other concern is the trees. The township has been actively trying to preserve the larger trees, as well as the tree trust that we have in Mount Forest. So I'd like to try and see the trees saved as much as possible. But I'm really interested, even though Matt has suggested that there's nothing moving forward on that larger portion. In my opinion, I think that that's part of the equation to approve the rezoning. Thank you.
Councilor Rankin.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. Yes, I'd like some clarification, please. Is it my understanding that the severance will take place after the buildings are built because you require that larger portion in order to have it zoned R2?
Curtis.
Yes, through Mayor Lennox to Councillor Rankin. Likely the draft bylaw staff would be preparing for council's consideration. We'd likely be proposing to leave the rear portion zoned R1C. So not zone the back half to R2. So when it merged with the property at 119, it would have similar zoning, and that wouldn't permit townhouses or anything. And if there were ever further plans by the owner, they would have to come in to change the zoning at that point.
So you're saying that if they did the severance now, before they proceeded with any building, what's at the first half, the 40% at the first by the road, will be enough for an R2 zone?
Through the mayor. So that's what's proposed by the developer, that there'd be enough land left with each townhouse to meet the R2's standards.
And not including that. So why is the severance not being done now?
Through the mayor. So that may be a question for the applicant in terms of their timing. They could have done, I guess they could do it first, or there is what they're proposing is to do it after here.
Okay,
So-
but it's my understanding, according to the application, that the land included the severing part is 0.7 acres, and that the building on the land will be less than 40% of the land. Now, if you take away that 60% of the land and you sever it, what portion of that land will be covered by the building then?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councilor Rankin. So that is, so planning staff has also asked for a sketch to show the proposed dwellings. So I think that would help us and help council see where they'd exactly be placed. One thing we've also noted is there are existing homes on either side, and it would be ideal to see the new dwellings built at a very similar setback. So there would be opportunity there. I think there is room to possibly push the dwellings back a little bit as well to provide that continuous streetscape and maybe some more parking and snow storage. So that's one of our requests before we come back to the public meeting, that we would have a sketch. And it sounds like if they're working on the survey, they'd be able to do that for us.
Because I'm a bit confused then, because if the land, as it stands now, 0.7 acres, the building is going to be less than 40% of that 0.7 acres. If you only have 40% of the land to build on, and your home is going to be less than 40%, to me, that means the house is going to be taking up at least 80 or 85% of that 40%.
Yeah, through the mayor. So yeah, I guess, I'm in my mind, and my understanding is they would, if we rezone the front half or front portion to R2, that would then later be divided into 4 new lots, which would each have a townhouse. And those townhouses would have to be within the requirements. So if that's 40%, so that'd be 40% of the new lot. Because right now, 40% of the very large lot would be they could build a very large dwelling. But if once they've made the lot smaller and they're severed, that would be 40%.
The way I'm reading the application now, the lot stands at 0.7 acres, and that's less. And according to the application, your building is less than 40% of that 0.7 acres. So to me, your building is going to be very large on that lot. And we've discussed in council previously about the percentage of a building on a lot that we would like. And to me, that's going to be a lot larger than what we have discussed in compliance with the bylaw.
Through the mayor. So I think through receiving the survey, that's something that we can address and have for council to consider to show the dwelling sizes. And maybe, I don't know if Matt was able to indicate how big of dwellings he's proposing to build on each lot.
He's got his hand up, so we'll let him speak to this. Matt, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So just for some clarity, we're applying for the R2 zone on the front portion of this lot. So it is a 40-meter deep area. The current single lot that exists right now, that front portion, again, we're going to divide into 4 pieces. Each of those will be at least 292 square meters. The R2 zone requires a minimum of 280, so it's going to be above the standard provision of the zone. And then within each of those lots, each unit will comply with the lot coverage provisions of the zoning bylaw, because we're not asking for any special permission at this point. We haven't produced an exact drawing because we don't have the R plan totally refined yet. And like our models that we make, a lot's so wide, and then when you divide it into 4 spaces, you take the standard side yard setback. And then if the last time it was 24 feet and this time the lot's 24 and a half feet, we get our drafter to just add a half foot of width or whatever's needed to make it match the exact lot boundaries that are going to be needed. So that's why we don't have the specific drawing done at this point, because the R plan is not completely done. But our design will adapt to exactly what the standard R2 provisions ask for. It will be underneath what is prescribed as the maximum permitted lot coverage. And this will be like this lot dimension we're proposing is effectively identical to what was done on Wellington Street East. We matched that lot depth based on those similar lots and our existing townhouse plans that meet the required rear yard and front yard setbacks. And I believe it's 40% lot coverage. It might be 35. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whatever we come up with will comply with the standard provision. So there's nothing going to be exceeding whatever is in the R2 zone. So hopefully that provides some clarity there.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to continue with Councillor Burke's comment about the depth of the lot, in your application, you advise that the deep, narrow lot would be a waste of space. And I'm sorry, but I have to disagree. You have people that may be coming in from out of our township or from a larger urban center. They're buying a house, and as the application stands now, it looks as though should be having a large lot. That lot could be used for children playing safely off the road. It could be used for a garden. In this day and age, when the groceries are so expensive and a person's buying a house and has a mortgage, they may welcome being able to put a large garden for their vegetables for the year. They could put a swimming pool in. It has lots of uses that somebody coming into our rural area might enjoy, having that extra green space. So I'm afraid I'm not in favor of having the lot severed at the back. I believe it should remain as one. And to just reiterate a comment from our previous conversation, Darren Jones was saying that it could be put into the sales contract that referring to the adjustment committee, could it be put into, if this does go through, could it be put into the sales contract that this was originally such a large lot and that 60% of it had been removed by severance before these people bought?
Yeah, I'm not sure who to address that to. Curtis,
the township could request that, but I'm not sure to what end doing that, what that might accomplish on the township's behalf.
I just find it's not a terribly transparent way of selling the lots and then severing the land from it afterwards. So, sorry.
So I think in order to create those lots, the severance would have to be completed first. I get it. We're not going to rezone the whole thing, so we're going to have to have a definition of where that severance is going to occur to complete the rezoning. I mean, we're hearing this application today. Often we deal with this and vote on it right away. This time we're not, because there's a number of things that are incomplete here in terms of sketch, in terms of the actual building footprint and location, and the outstanding issue with this consent as well. So I think we're going to get that information in the future before we actually have to take a vote on this. And so I think some of that stuff probably is best. I mean, it's fine to raise it, but I think before we make a decision, before we decide on how we feel about it, it should be, we need to have the whole picture. Matt, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, wrong button. Just to clarify, we're not selling lots that illustrate a lot depth that goes all the way to the rear and then severing it and giving people 40% of the lot they planned on buying. We need all this stuff approved and our carry on and everything lined up before we can sell anything. And all of our contracts at this point, we plan on showing exactly what we're showing right now, other than it's going to have an actual R plan prepared by a surveyor, and then the final drawings again that line up with those widths and that comply with the zoning bylaw. So we are not selling anything that is like right now that is different than what we plan on building. And just on the depth of the lots, like I discussed this with Curtis beforehand, it really is not the density of this development to be just 4 units on lots that deep, in my opinion, in my planning opinion, is not reflective of a good long-term use of this potential for this property. And separating that across 4 different owners, it makes a lot more long-term planning sense to take that one big unused piece and stick it to any of these abutting properties that could be developed long-term into something different. Once you cut it up into those long, narrow pieces, that density is pretty much limited permanently. And we've sold plenty of these, and that rear space on the depth that bit, like there's still going to be a 9 or 12 meter rear yard on these dwellings as is. And when you start getting into a rear yard that's, I think, 60 meters deep, it just becomes a lot of grass. Like we really have not had a lot of customers super excited about a very, very deep lot like that. So I do think there will be enough space. Again, it does comply with the zoning bylaw. And we build many of these throughout town already.
Thank you. Why then couldn't you have the severed lot line further back so these people get a chance to have a good sized backyard in a rural area?
That could be done. Again, the intent was to give them, they are going to have a decent sized rear yard. It's consistent with lots of other townhouses in town. It's consistent with the zoning bylaw. And the intent was to not take more than was needed to give someone a necessary rear yard and to keep that big piece as large as possible for future options.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Hearn?
Lots of good questions so far. Like I don't know that I have a whole lot to add except for maybe some comments, and I still know we're still in a preliminary stage. I'm quite supportive of efficient use of space and space that will provide homes for young families and retirees. It's proven that we do have a deficit of those types of homes, and I would like to see retired people stay within their community. Something that I would like, and I don't know how you do this, is some assurance that these homes will meet or come close to the affordability index. What I do not really support are conflicts between varying uses, and it would be my preference if these trees could remain, and alternatively to that, a fence could go up. So again, I just don't want to see people fighting down the road.
Other questions, Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. I too have a comment about the mature trees, especially that are on the road. I would like to see every possible chance be made that these trees could remain. This is an older part of town. There are other trees on the street, and to see sections without any trees is not really conducive to a rural setting. So I would like to see the trees as many of those mature trees stay as possible. And if you could work around it, the driveway is fairly large to get large equipment in to work behind them.
Other questions, comments? We have one from the floor again.
Thank you. Would it be possible for council to say no to the townhouses and just allow 2 single unit dwellings in there, 2 family homes with a half decent wide property to whatever the division is, how many meters. Just put in 2 homes that keep in the same context as the houses that are there now. That side of the street, that whole block to Byland, Egremont, they're all single-family dwellings. We don't need more townhouses.
So council is tasked with the job of dealing with the application that's in front of us.
Yeah,
So that's the way we have to approach it.
but if you say no, can you say with a
we
consideration
can't,
of two single-family dwellings?
make a recommendation, but it is private property and the owner does have rights to try to develop the property as they see fit.
Okay, he's talking about the long, skinny, useless lot. Our property is 220 feet deep and it's beautiful. Like, it's fenced off, it's gorgeous gardens, 30-foot cedar trees. It's not a useless lot. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Burke.
I just want to go back to the parcel that's going to be conveyed. If there would be consideration by the developer when this comes back, to give us some idea as to what the future thought is for the property, because I understand why it's being conveyed to 119 Byland Drive, because if it wasn't, then it would be landlocked. So I don't know if we can stipulate that when it comes back, because I'm hard pressed to believe that if a developer is buying a parcel of land of this size, that they don't have a plan for the rear portion.
I understand your concern, Councilor Burke. I do think, though, we need to bear in mind that the property at any time could make a lot line or could apply for a lot line adjustment, regardless of whether the townhouses are part of the development or not, to convey to a neighboring property. That right exists all the time.
I don't disagree with that, but I just think that it's important. I think it's important for the integrity of the process to understand the whole development.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? The only comment in addition to what my colleagues have added is I certainly would like to see a more detailed drawing on this one, including information in terms of the livable space of these townhomes as well, to understand who the market may be for their use. I know that in other situations, I've been supportive of townhomes that I later discovered were much larger than what I expected and made them less affordable. So I would ask that the information come back with that type of information accompanying it. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So I can certainly bring forward a sketch that is adjacent to what we will be doing. Again, the width of the unit might be off by like a foot because we don't have that final survey, but we don't like spending money to re-engineer a whole new plan when we can reuse the one we already have. So it'll be very similar to what is done on Wellington Street, again, plus or minus a foot of width. And just to clarify, so I will provide that to staff, who can then bring it forward with whatever bylaw. But just so everyone's clear, when you pass the bylaw, that does not tie us to that. Again, we're tied to the zoning provisions that are in the zoning bylaw. So it could be changed. We're not going to change it because we know exactly what we're going to do already, but I just want council to be aware of what is and isn't in your control in the scope of a zoning amendment, which is why I did not provide that super specific detail in the first place, because whatever we end up doing just has to comply with the zoning ultimately, or if it gets sold to a subsequent person even, which again, we're not doing, but it's just an important thing to remember, that the zoning is effectively what controls what can get built here.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I understand your perspective on that, Matt. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that council doesn't have very many opportunities to make the point of what the housing we believe we need in our community is. And this is an opportunity to do that, to demonstrate that what we think we need, to Councillor Hearn's point earlier about, who are the potential buyers of this? What is the deficit of the type of housing we need in our community? So that we're doing all that we can to encourage the building of what we believe is appropriate for our community.
Absolutely. And
Councillor
just for your information, we're planning on putting, these are going to be 2-bed, 2-bath on the main floor with an unfinished basement. Like they're a fairly straightforward, simple bungalow townhouse.
And I'm just trying to make sure that we all understand what we're signing up for here.
Yep.
Councillor Hearn.
Just wondered if I could tell a story. I know you normally do that, but it's usually you. But I was out for dinner about a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, and we've built some affordable homes here in Mount Forest. And it was a retired lady, frankly in her 70s, maybe 80 years old, at a table next to me, and I shouldn't have been listening, but she was so excited. She was really excited that she could stay in Mount Forest, that she could retire near people that she'd known for 60 years. Otherwise, she was going to have to leave. And that's the type of person that I really, really want to help. I don't want them to leave our community. So that's what I would like to see addressed here. And that's my little story for the day.
Thanks, Councillor Hearn. If there's nothing further, we'll adjourn for today. This discussion will be back to us. So I have a recommendation here that the public meeting of August 25th, 2025 be adjourned at 8:02 p.m. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Burke, Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So, okay. So I guess Karen explained the process to you. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go back to our regular meeting of council. And I have a recommendation that the council of the corporation of the Township of Wellington North resume the August 25th, 2025 regular meeting of council at 8:02 p.m. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any questions on agenda items tonight.
We do not.
Okay, so we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. And I didn't forget it this time. So I have a recommendation here that the minutes of the regular meeting of council and the development charges public meeting held on August 11th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Burke and Councillor Rankin, thank you. Any questions or comments on those minutes? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I don't believe we have any business arising, so we're on to identification of items requiring separate discussion. And I have items to be pulled out, including 4A, 5A, and 7A. So we'll deal with everything that wasn't identified. And that recommendation reads that all items listed under items for consideration on the August 11th, 2025 council agenda, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved and the recommendations therein be adopted. Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll move on to 4A to start with. This is the vendor check register. And I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the vendor check register report dated August 19th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 5A now. This is the traffic calming pilot project. And I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive report INF 2025-15, being a report on traffic calming pilot program. And further, that council directs staff to undertake a traffic calming pilot program to implement and report back to council with findings and recommendations on the below traffic calming devices. Installation of radar speed signs on Concession Road 11 at north and south limits or at or near the existing 60 km/h sign in Farewell. Installation of radar speed sign on Side Road 3 West, east of Wellington Road 6 and west of Sally Street at or near the existing 60 km/h sign. Installation of centerline flexible traffic calming delineators on Donville Street and Arthur between Eliza Street and Conestoga Street. And installation of centerline flexible traffic calming delineators on Church Street North, Mount Forest between Sligo Road and Wellington Street East. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Rankin, Councillor Burke, thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Rankin?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lennox. I quite agree with endorsing all the calming, the speed calming programs. What I did have a question. I know I've had complaints about Cork Street, and I have steered the people towards the report form for speeding. I was just wondering if there's a certain number of complaints that would be needed in order for action to be taken. I know, or is this a case where they would wait until all the development is done in the area?
Okay. Tammy, go ahead.
For you, Mayor Lennox. So currently to date, we have not received any traffic calming request forms for Cork Street. Through our policy, there's framework in there on how we receive it and how we review it and evaluate, and also have the time to respond back to the residents. So currently we haven't received anything for that area.
Thank you very much. That's interesting. Okay.
Any other questions, Councillor Burke?
Yes, I have a question through you, Mayor Lennox. I too am glad to see this report come forward. Very excited about traffic calming measures. My question is specifically with regards to the flexible traffic calming on the urban streets. I'm just wondering how we'll measure the success of whether these are working or not, and the length of the pilot project. I guess specifically for the urban streets, because once we put in radar speed signs, it's the hope that just like we have some in the school areas, that people will eventually slow down.
Tammy?
Through you, Mayor Lennox. So the traffic calming flexible delineators, we've had some feedback from Church Street North and Mount Forest. So that location will have to review the site to make sure they don't interfere with any laneways, but also keep it within those 2 to 3 blocks. And then to measure the data that we'll collect, we'll do a traffic count that will give the number of vehicles that go down the road as well as speed. We'll do it prior to posting them, and then also a couple times during the installation to see how it impacts traffic vehicle speed. And then similarly in Arthur, Donville Street was another location that was identified from past complaints that we've received. So we're going to do a study in that area as well.
Thank you, Tammy. And I too am surprised that nobody has filed a complaint with regards to Cork Street, because I get several calls on that as well. So I guess the message is to fill out the complaint forms.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Hearn?
I don't know whether anyone can answer this. Maybe Tammy can. In Farewell, have we ever looked at a 4-way stop versus traffic calming measures? I'm just wondering, maybe there's a reason, and it might do more than a sign.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lennox. So stopways aren't supposed to be used as a form of control for traffic calming measures. So our hopes is that by putting up the speed radar camera that will flash to indicate if somebody's speeding through the area, that they will slow down. So we're going to study this area to see if that helps improve the speed.
Any other questions? I had a couple of brief ones as well, Tammy. When we're measuring the success of this, and I'm thinking specifically about Church Street in this case, I do get some feedback that high school traffic also uses Fergus Street. So when we're doing traffic counts, if we could do counts on both simultaneously to see if there's changes in traffic pattern, that would be, I think, useful information as well.
That sounds like a lovely idea. We'll include that.
And I'm also curious. The county has done some traffic calming on Sligo Road that may direct some traffic onto Church Street. So interested to see any information that we can gather on that would be helpful too.
Sure. Yep.
And then the only other comment I would make is, yeah, I think the traffic calming on Donville is also valuable one because we do see a lot of concerns raised there. And I've also had some anecdotal complaints with regard to Cork Street as well that I've received. It's interesting that there's been no formal complaints because I have encouraged those people to register formal complaints, and in my role as police services board chair, I also encourage them to call the police and report speeding so that the police are aware of the issue. So I would ask that, if you're getting complaints, please tell people to call the non-emergency police line and report it, because if the police don't realize there's a concern, they're not going to show up. Because that can help with traffic calming too. But yeah, I'm broadly supportive of the initiative, and thanks for this. I assume that we're going to evaluate the feedback and decide where we go next with this type of activity. And I think Councillor Burke asked, but maybe I didn't clearly hear the answer. What have we set a time limit on this?
So through you, Mayor Lennox, so the traffic delineators, they'll have to be removed by November 1st for winter operations. The speed radar signs, we can keep them up throughout the year as well.
Okay. So you're hoping to have some feedback before the end of the year here on those delineators?
Yes, and it will also feed into our urban traffic impact study that we're doing as well. And we're hoping to be able to update our traffic pedestrian request form policy to include additional information from it.
Okay. And in the budget we created for this, did you factor on a certain number of these delineators being destroyed through the normal course of activity?
That will be part of the data collection. But yes, we'll have a few that for the initial ones that are installed. And then if we have to do a couple of replacements, then we'd be able to do that.
Because that is feedback I've heard from other communities that use these, is that they take a bit of abuse. Okay. Anything further from council? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And that brings us to 7A. This is, excuse me, with regard to notice of an application of consent regarding the town of Minto. So we have a recommendation that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North receive the notice of an application or consent from the County of Wellington Planning and Land Division Committee dated August 8th, 2025 regarding town of Minto part lots 2 and 3, concession A, Roy Noon. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Rankin and Councillor Hearn, thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of our items for consideration. Do we have any notice of motion this evening? Takers? Community group meeting program report. Anybody have anything they'd like to report on tonight? Councillor Hearn, go ahead.
Just a comment, the Guelph Lake Nature Center, the grand opening's on the 4th. I confirm that I'm going, and now I might not be able to, so hopefully I can, if I can't go, can recruit one of you guys. There's food and and a nice new nature center, which is a really great thing that the Guelph Lake Nature Center is going to be open.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to report on? Okay. Just a couple things I wanted to update council on. Last week I was at the AMO convention in Ottawa. We had the opportunity to meet with 3 different ministries. We met with the Minister of Sport with regard to capital funding for the Mount Forest pool. Joining me in that was Mayor Milne from Southgate and Mayor Turton from Minto, who came and supported the delegation and gave some really fantastically interesting context to the discussion. We had a great discussion, and we're informed there will be another intake of grant opportunities this fall to stay tuned and make sure that we're ready for that. So we also met with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and discussed some of our ongoing issues related to growth. It was an interesting discussion. I can't say that there was a whole lot come out of that other than when I told them I was meeting later with the Ministry of Infrastructure, they said, yeah, do that. Because of the need for funding with regard to the Arthur wastewater treatment upgrades. And then we met with the Ministry of Infrastructure, and we're joined by our MPP in advocating for the dollars for the Arthur wastewater treatment plant upgrade. So hopefully they announced another $1.5 billion for that sort of thing province-wide. Hopefully we will be in the lineup for some of those dollars this time around. I was joking with the parliamentary assistant who I met with, as here I am again. You're having to listen, I'm having to ask. If you don't want to see me again, just send a check. So we had a good discussion. I don't have anything further to add to that, the update. Also coming up is the Arthur Fall Fair, and I've had a request for us to submit or participate in the parade again. I wonder if council is interested in doing that. 5th, I believe it is. Yeah, so it's a Thursday, the 4th. Right? Or is the parade? No, parade's Friday night, the 5th. Friday night, yeah. The dinner's the 4th, parade's the 5th. And I've forgotten the theme. Yeah, I could circulate that. I don't have that right now, but certainly I'm happy to circulate that. Getting a float together is probably the bigger challenge.
Harvesting memories. Sorry, that's the theme.
I seem to do better when I have the printed word in front of me. I did
Okay.
attend Home Hardware the second day, but wrong time.
Okay. We'll make sure that you have that. Councilor Burke, would you be able to?
I think I'm away.
Okay. Well, I'll check with Councilor McCabe and hopefully we can pull something together. All right, I don't think I have anything further at this point. So that brings us to bylaws. There's 3 here. I have a recommendation that bylaw number 52, 53, and 54-2025 be read and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Rankin and Councilor Burke, thank you. Any questions or comments on those bylaws? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we're on to our cultural moment, celebrating Rixon Rafter.
The Wellington North Cultural Roundtable presents A Cultural Moment, Rixon Rafter. In the early 1900s, the village of Arthur was a quiet place where news traveled slowly and community ties ran deep. Into this world stepped Rickson Rafter, a young man with no sight but a clear vision. At just 23 years old, he took over the Arthur Enterprise and began shaping not just headlines, but the very voice of the town. What made Rafter extraordinary wasn't just his youth or his blindness. It was his ability to see what mattered most to his readers and reflect it back with clarity and conviction. Rafter's journey into journalism began with a degree from Queen's University, an impressive feat made even more extraordinary by the fact that he was the youngest graduate of his class. In 1908, he purchased the Arthur Enterprise. Under Rafter's stewardship, the paper would become a vital voice for the community for decades to come. He was known for his sharp memory and keen editorial instincts. He often attended council meetings and community events without taking notes, relying solely on his mental acuity to recall details and craft compelling stories. He wrote editorials, gathered news, and secured advertising, all while managing the paper's operations with the help of a printer for the mechanical work. His work was not only prolific but deeply respected. In 1954, Rafter was named Weekly Newspaperman of the Year by the Ontario Division of the Canadian Weekly Newspaper Association. In his acceptance speech, he humbly stated, "I will accept it, not because it might show any accomplishment on my part, but only in hope that it might reveal to sightless people an avenue of opportunity open to them." Rafter retired in 1953, selling the paper to Clive Williams Sr., but his influence endured. Rafter passed away in 1963 and is buried at Greenfield Cemetery. In 2020, he was inducted into the Ontario Community Newspaper Association's Hall of Fame. In remembering Rafter, we don't just honor a newspaper man, we celebrate a storyteller who never needed sight to see the heart of Arthur.
Okay. We're on to our confirming bylaw. The recommendation that bylaw number 55-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Wellington North at its regular meeting held on August 25th, 2025, be read and passed. Moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Hearn. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And before we move to adjournment, just look at the notices for a moment. The farmers market every Saturday, serve for another month yet. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, the 8th of September. Our Mount Forest BIA will meet the 9th from 8 to 9 a.m. Arthur Chamber of Commerce the 10th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And the Mount Forest Chamber of Commerce 16th from 5 to 6 p.m. Safe Communities Wellington County will be 17th from 9:30 to 11:30. And the Arthur BIA September 17th, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. And that's virtual. And our second meeting in September, council meeting in September, would be the 22nd. With that, recommendation that the regular council meeting of August 25th, 2025 be adjourned at 8:23 p.m. Oh, right. Thank you. I was just reminded that for those of you who are viewing our council, you may notice the absence of Councillor McCabe tonight. And I think I'm prepared to give him a pass for not being here anyways, because he got married on Saturday. So our congratulations go to Councillor McCabe, and many, many happy years in the future, I hope, for he and Michelle. And with that, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Councillor Rankin, Councillor Hearn, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.